All right. What are we talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah,
This is your show, not mine. I just show up.
this is tangents. One thing I thought about when I was driving over here to the office was that you said something yesterday that might be a good jumping off point because it's something we both struggle with, which is
Every time we talk, you're like, "Oh, you said," and I never remember
no,
anything I say.
yeah, it's perfect because I can just make it up and you won't just agree. You just be like, yeah, I said that,
If it sounds smart, yeah, I'm gonna agree.
No, it was something about. Actually, don't. You'll remember when
No,
I.
it didn't sound smart. You said
No,
it.
it didn't sound smart at all. Knowing when to stop, knowing when to put something down and walk away from it, and not just sit there and try to grind through it.
I have such a problem with that. Yesterday, I had a lot of phone calls and Zooms in the morning, and my brain. You know when you get to that point, right, where, if the fatigue you get from exercise, right, there's a physical component from it. There's a pain, there's a tiredness that you can feel. That happens mentally too. And I was at that point where I'm fatigued. I cannot think. And I'm... And on top of that, my wrist was really, I've been having I don't know if it's like a carpal tunnel thing. It's fine today. Some mornings I wake up and it's a nightmare. Other times I wake up and it's completely fine. Because when I get in a space like that, I'll go play some video games because it's just, I just, play the game and that's it. So, but I fight it, and I fought it for 2 hours yesterday, and I was so miserable from noon to 2. And on top of that, I'm stewing. So when I get intellectually burned out, my emotions take the place of my reason, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of emotions.
Yeah,
they override. When they get too big, they override my reason, and when my reason is weakened, they can just stroll right in. So I was very grumpy about a lot of things, very caustic about a lot. But the good thing is I can recognize that and try and not engage with people because I know part of my nature when I get especially grumpy is I want to cut you with words and make you bleed feelings.
Yeah.
I actually said that yet last night while I was kind of talking because I try and process anger in a healthy way, especially around my kids, and walk them through what I'm thinking and why I feel that way, and be outward with it, not so that they can understand that anger or being upset at yourself or other people, that is a part of life, and it's what you do with it and how you process it that matters. But in that time period where I'm just so tense and unhappy with things, I need to just break off, and I didn't yesterday. And of course, once I did, I went downstairs. I watched YouTube. There's a thing called Tank Chats that I really like. It's a British tank museum, and they have these British guys, and they talk about tanks from World War. They have so many different tanks. They talk about them. They get into details about, the armor and the guns, and I love watching them. About 45 minutes in, I noticed that one of our clients texted me, and I went upstairs and talked to Dan for a little bit. That was fine.
yeah.
Until a different problem popped up that really set me off last night around 4:45. Oh, we're in a funny space right now. Every 6 months or so, we've been talking about this where you and I, we're constantly injecting ourselves in the parts of the business and then pulling back, injection and pulling back. And it's funny that we both came to this conclusion independently and then talked about it at the same time, where it's not like a wavelength. If you look at, is that an oscilloscope that shows wavelengths?
Yep.
So if you look at an oscilloscope, it's up, down, up, down, up, down. Your peaks and troughs are all the same, right? Sometimes over the past 13 years, it feels like that, like we're no better off than we have been. But if you really look at it, take that oscilloscope reading and tilt it at 45 degrees, and that's what it's like. We go up high, and then, we lose a bit of our step, but we don't lose all of it. And we go back up and we come down, and it's that process. And right now, it's been about 6 months since I've really dove into some of our operations and things like that. And I think with any business, large or small, chaos always Mr. Chaos will creep in.
Yeah.
And I think we're smelling a bit of that point where, there's a little bit of chaos that has dripped in, and it's time to kind of grab it,
Yeah, it's a maintenance thing, really. It's like, let's check in and, lift the rug up and see what's underneath it. For me, it's funny. I have the same kind of challenge when not knowing when to stop, but my issue is that I struggle with the space of the hateful idea of stopping versus stopping. And it can actually go both ways. Like, it can be that I stop and I'm fine and I feel great, or I stop and I feel worse because I didn't keep going. And what usually happens is that I will end up in a place where I'll be creating stuff and I'll be doing great, and then that will stop. I'll be done that little sprint, and the next thing I'm creating isn't clear to me, so I just keep creating. And I just make a whole bunch of meaningless stuff until I can get back on to the next idea. And sometimes that meaningless stuff, gets stored away on a hard drive for a couple of months, and then I revisit it and I'm like, oh, that can be applied to here. So it's sort of like I'm planting future, seeds, and it's just not time to reap anything. And then other times I'm just, I feel compelled to sit at my desk and do something, and I have no idea why. And so I tend to try to look at it in like a cycle kind of mindset. Like right now, I know I'm in a down cycle, and we talked about that yesterday as we prepare for, correcting some of this chaos and, readjusting some process and the production stuff. I need to be ready for that. So I'm okay with how I landed this.
Yeah, you need a little bit of that space, and I'm glad we have that space, because I'm, making good progress on what do I want to do about these challenges. How are we responding and not reacting to these challenges?
Yeah.
And that's a key component, because especially when I am mentally drained, I'm highly reactive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anyone any good. And it's funny how these things also happen when they need to. Because Jack came home last night and he has this, I don't know, they must expect more out of kids now, because I didn't get my first research paper until I was in 10th grade, I think, maybe even later than that. So he has to do this research paper. He's in 7th grade, and it's on landmark court cases that have affected unemployment. Mm-hmm. And, he's a polar opposite of me in this instance. He has the due date he wants to get it done. He wants to get it done, is to focus on it, get it done. I'm a procrastinator. I love putting off.
Yeah, write it the night before.
I always procrastinate. I think because I'm processing what I want to do, and then I do it.
Yeah.
So, but he would last night at 7:15. He texted me and said, "Hey, I'm really nervous about, even though he's right above me, but we text a lot. I'm really nervous about this work." And I said, "Hey, what part of it's due?" He said, this, and then I said, "When is it due?" "On Friday." I go, "Buddy, you get enough time. You did a little bit of work tonight." I go, "Walk away from it. Go play some Fortnite. It's 7:15 at night. You don't need to grind this thing through.
Yeah.
Put it aside for a little bit, give it some space, and then come back to it." And I'm so grateful that I have gone through some of these parts of the mental wilderness, so that I can say those kind of things. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what to say to him right now, because I know exactly how he feels.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm most grateful in what we do, is being able to take these experiences and, I know you do it, help your kids through these challenges that they face, for for my own reasons, I didn't really have a lot of guidance. That's actually not expressing them. I had zero guidance.
Yeah.
As a kid. No one looked at me in high school and said, no guidance counselor met with me and said, oh, hey, this is kind of interesting. Some of your classes, you're a C and D student. But interestingly enough, in all of your business electives, you literally always get like 100 on every, that's all of your term grades. And same thing with history, hundreds. Maybe kind of look in that direction as you move forward in life. Like, no one ever said that to me. I eventually came to that conclusion myself, around 17, 18, 19, slowly over time. But, I always sit back and wonder, like, who does Jim with guidance become?
Yeah.
And I think, you and I grew up, very, very different. I feel like your parents were very supportive of your artistic pursuits, because I think both of your, from an outsider's viewpoint, your mom is clear, she clearly has creative talent, and your dad is, also comes from a creative field. A lot of the, the engineering and tool making work. I mean, the stuff that I've seen him build at your house, it's cool. Like, it doesn't look it looks like someone. Like that double stacked smoker he made, that looked like he bought it somewhere.
Yeah,
like that doesn't look like he built it in his garage.
Yeah.
And so, that sort of intersection between that, whatever blue collar is, I mean, whatever that is, and the creative pursuit, you have that kind of really interesting intermeshing of those two talents where you like to create mentally, but also physically create.
Yeah, it's the engineer and the artist kind of blended together.
You're the Leonardo da Vinci of your time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wish. But
me too.
academically, I wasn't a top performer. I didn't want to do the work. I always like I've always had that pragmatic side of me that just looks at it and goes, yeah, but how will I ever apply this? And there's still things that, teachers were upset that I said that I was right about. And so I was a B and C student. So that wasn't very similar to you. I didn't have a guidance on that front, except you got to bring your grades up. You got to bring your grades up.
No one said, hey, this creative talent you have, you can not only make a living with it, you can make a pretty good one and build a business on the back of it.
Well, the art teachers from 5th grade to the end of high school and then beyond, anybody that was instructing me would go out of their way to spend extra time with me, including, I won every art award along the way. But the funny thing about the word art in, the late 90s, early 2000s, and even now today, is that it sort of is like written off in a professional sense. So you win all these awards for art in school. That's cool. Good for you. Nice job. But you can do nothing with that. So now you have to decide what you're going to do for a career that's not art, because art's not going to sustain you. And, I've mentored many younger, like my son's age, my son's 17, and some of his friends, that you can figure out how to make money off of your art. And the job number one is to realize that you have to make money off your art. If you want to live an art life, there's no world where you don't need money. So let's just disabuse anybody of that. Yeah. And then once that's through, it might be a more convoluted way. It might be figuring out what you need to live. And you may make a choice to not live this, life of luxury and wealth magnitude because you're doing your art and you're happy. But you do need to figure out how you sustain yourself with
You
that.
got to eat. You need clothes. You need water. You
Yeah.
need shelter.
And so, we went out. I remember it really well because we went to this nice place. We went out with a couple of friends, and my son my son brought a friend, and we were sitting at the the dinner table, and I picked up the tab for everybody. We were all together, and that this person was like, I don't like commercial art at all. Like I think, like we got on the subject of like Warhol, and then it turned into commercial art because some of the stuff that Andy Warhol did was derivative of commercial art and advertising and packaging and things like that. And it was like, yeah, I mean, you can not like it, but it's just paying for those like 48 oysters that we just ate, and so like it became this sort of like space of like aha moment. Like, yeah, you can be a really talented artist and write yourself off as being someone that is not going to succeed because you're an artist and have that struggle. Or you can get to work figuring out how you live the life you want to live and push yourself to do that. Not everything that you're going to make is going to be the thing that you're most proud of, but sure as hell is going to move you forward. And that's what I now tell people is like, yeah, don't give up on that so quickly. Don't just write that off. And it breaks my heart when I see people that have,
They have it.
they might have it, they might not, but they've given up on it. Like, oh, I used to do this and I don't do it anymore. It's like, you don't even do it for fun? No, that's not me anymore. And it's like, okay, so you chose this, somebody got in your head and you chose this path. And usually those people are well-meaning. They're worried about you, but they haven't done the legwork or the head work to figure out how to help you. They're just worried that you're going to be homeless because you can paint really well. So they mean well and they want to help you, but they're not actually, they stop at starving artists and then they just move along with their life. And you might be a really talented painter, but you have to figure out what you do with your knowledge of painting to sustain the fact that you want to paint.
Yeah. How is that commercialized?
Right. Right. So for me, it's wrestling with the outside voices and blocking them out and being like, yeah, that's nice. I get it. I want to do this anyway. And going back to my parents, where they supported me the most, I think was outside of school. And I don't think it was necessarily like they didn't sit down and go, this is truly what we're going to teach him. I just think it happened through osmosis. This is in the very early days of, Microsoft Windows and things like that. My dad was always working his ass off. Like, get up at 2 a.m., come home at 5, almost every day. Get that overtime. Go in on Saturdays. I would go in on Saturday with him. He would be out on the floor working on the machine, and I would be in the computer lab in Microsoft Paint making stuff. And so like that was probably when I was, gosh, I don't know, 6th grade, 7th grade, you know. So I've always had this ability to kind of like, I definitely care what other people think and I want to listen to their opinions, but I've always had this ability to kind of make my own way through it. And, same thing with my mom. It's like they had little projects, little businesses, little things going on all the time. My mom would like paint she would go to craft fairs and sell stuff, like crafts and different like little wooden figurines and stuff. And my dad would make the wooden figurines, and then my mom would paint them. And so I had this kind of exposure to all these different, like the church we went to, all the statues. My mom repainted them all,
Oh, wow.
for the church. And so like, she would do that kind of stuff, and I would just kind of watch,
It's important to remember that because you think about what we're always being watched
Yeah.
by the behaviors that we're modeling, our our children are absorbing and modeling that consistently.
Yeah.
How we react to things or don't react to them, or how we respond to them, and just the nature of the environment that you were in, it allowed this thing in you to expand, because you can. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I call you a bit of a creative polymath, right? That being said, I think your drawing talent is probably
Yeah. That's the root of it all.
that
Yeah.
the root of it all is that, right? But so much of I can see how your ideas come from that. How I walk past your desk in here and I see all the little doodles and everything, but there's meaning behind a lot of this stuff that you make, and a lot of your ideas will come out that way. And I think that it's interesting to watch when you explain creative ideas to the team, because I think the best ones actually they communicate they're understood the best, and you get your intention out the best when you do it visually, as opposed to you're very good at writing.
But I am a visual first person.
Yeah, and I think some of our best work has come from these little sketches that you've made, because it makes your intention physical and more concrete. It's funny, words are weird.
Yeah.
Everyone reads their meaning differently. You read a paragraph versus I read a paragraph. We both come away with something different. Now, obviously, something visual, you take modern art, you can look at that, and everyone's interpreting that differently, okay? I'm not suggesting that level of, when you share something where it's more like realism.
Yeah.
When you show someone a bowl of peaches,
Yeah.
okay, it's a bowl of peaches. I don't really think a lot of the art that was created kind of, and I'm, of course, I haven't studied art,
Yeah.
but no one was looking for anyone to interpret a bowl of peaches when it was done then. Now you might do that, and maybe there would be some because we have photography now. I've always looked at realism in the same way. Well, photography didn't exist. People wanted to capture an exact moment in time, exactly how it looked, so they can remember it, not necessarily interpret it. Of course, now that's a little bit different. I don't know why I got on that tangent there, but it's just your drawing skill is something that I think really helps on the communication end.
Yeah. It's you make a good point. I think it's figuring out, a lot of times it's the best way into the idea that I have to go with. Leaving as little as possible, to the imagination is very, very important, especially at the beginning. In the middle, we're in a business where things have to have a defined result. They have to be practical. We're not. We are the standard bearers for both our clients' reputation and their budget. So we're not like going to recommend something that's so wild that they couldn't afford it anyway, and might be a risk for them, from a brand perspective. But also, the best stuff is practical, important, and cool. And that's where I think the translation of the idea and the way it gets presented to the team is very, very, very important, because it gets everyone excited. I've done these like really long written briefs where I include a screenshot of this and a picture of that and this,
Video
that,
over
yeah,
here,
yeah,
and
and too much of that gets misinterpreted, or it's like, oh, okay,
Or someone homes in on just one small piece and misses everything else.
So I try to make myself, or I hope as we move forward with new process, that I make myself as available as I can be to the blue sky conversations around the thing, because that is what is going to make it cool. Because it's usually, if I'm recommending the idea, I'm excited about it, and I have to pass that excitement along somehow.
Yeah. Why don't we do a quick commercial break and maybe we talk a little bit about your briefing, like how you look at briefing. I think that might be kind of a fun conversation.
Yeah, that'd be cool.